Welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm your host, Tony Perkins. The website, tonyperkins.com. Again, we've got team members standing by to take your phone calls if you'd like to join with us as we come to the end of our fiscal year to partner with the Family Research Council and Washington Watch to ensure that this program continues to go out across the country. The phone number, 800-225-4008. That's 800-225-4008, or as always, you can go to tonyperkins.com. But again, just reminding you, this program is made possible because of folks like you partnering with us across the country. We receive no government money. We're all funded 100% by folks like you across the country that care deeply about faith, family, and freedom. All right, where is the starting line, or I guess I should ask, where is the finishing line for those pushing transgenderism in America? Last week, the Supreme Court redefined the meaning of the word sex as it applied to employment. No longer does it simply mean a biological male or female. But what about for the purposes of sports? Well, the court said that they would leave other matters like sports, religious freedom, for another day. But last week, the Department of Justice weighed in on the topic in the state of Idaho, filing a statement of interest in federal court in support of Idaho's Fairness in Women's Sports Act. Joining me now to talk about this is the Department of Justice Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Eric Dreiband. Eric, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hello, Tony. Thank you for having me back.
Okay, Eric, I'm going to let you just lay this out. The Department of Justice filing a statement of interest in federal court in support of a law passed by the Idaho legislature, signed into law by the governor, and then you have the ACLU and others threatening to sue the state over this law that simply says women's sports are for women.
That's correct. So what happened here, Tony, is that at the end of March, as you said, the governor of Idaho signed into law the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. And what that law does is it essentially creates teams for boys or men and girls or women. And in particular, it says that athletic teams or sports designated for females, women, or girls shall not be open to students of the male sex. So what happened was an individual who is transgender, that is biological male and identifies as female, and another individual who's a biologically female have sued the state of Idaho, and they claim that the Idaho law violates the Constitution of the United States. So we last week filed, as you said, a statement of interest in which we explained and the case is pending in federal court, and so we filed in federal court, and we explained that this Idaho law, the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, in fact, complies with the Constitution's protections, and that, in fact, the Constitution enables states like Idaho to have separate sex-specific teams.
And if I'm not mistaken, the whole purpose, going back to the adoption, I think it's Title IX, was to provide for opportunities for women, sports being one of those opportunities in education. And so this is consistent where the law has been, is it not?
Yeah, now this case, at least in terms of, yes, in a sense. The Title IX is a federal law passed by Congress in the early 1970s that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in education. And so it's a statute enacted by Congress. It still governs any institution that receives federal money and prohibits sex discrimination. In the Idaho case, what is currently pending before the court is a challenge under the Constitution of the United States. In other words, the plaintiffs in that case claim that the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which was enacted in 1868, just after the Civil War, that amendment does not permit Idaho to enact a law that designates athletic teams limited to females, women or girls. Our filing took issue with that, in that we explained that under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, in fact, the state of Idaho is authorized to do that. So the Title IX question is not currently presented before the federal court in that case. But it may come up later. It is part of the plaintiff's claim. It's just not currently pending before the court.
So this is this the first case of its kind that has gotten to this point?
It's the first case that I'm aware of where there's a challenge to a state law of this sort. There have been other claims. There is the opposite kind of claim pending in the state of Connecticut. In that state, Connecticut assigns athletes to teams based on their gender identity. So Connecticut has the exact opposite policy as Idaho has enacted here, and there is a lawsuit there pending challenging the Connecticut law under Title IX.
So, Eric Dreiband, what do you see as the progression here? Is this something that will be settled there at the federal court, or is this something in Idaho, or is this another one of those cases that's going to end up before the Supreme Court?
Well, I think eventually, if not this particular case, I think the issue and the issues of gender identity and athletics, I think eventually will go to the Supreme Court of the United States. I don't know whether it will go up in this case. Mm-hmm. Right now the case is pending before a federal judge in Idaho, and from there would go to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, and then from there to the Supreme Court if it continues to be contested.
Yeah, I think, once the court has gone down this path like they did last week, it's just kind of hard to have separate definitions of sex in different cases, I would think. So this has complicated things quite a bit. But here, again, we see the Department of Justice standing on behalf of the states that are duly enacting laws that protect women in sports. So we certainly commend you for that. I hope it turns out well. It's quite frankly just troubling to see what's happening in our country today.
Well, Tony, the Supreme Court in earlier cases has recognized that there are physiological differences between males and females, and that those differences are enduring. And certainly, as Attorney General Barr said, under the Constitution, the equal protections that the Constitution recognizes, at least we argued in our papers, allows Idaho to recognize these differences, and that's what they've done here with respect to athletics.
Well, we appreciate you defending their right to do that. Eric Dreiband, as always, great to have you on the program. Thanks for stopping by.
Okay, thank you, Tony.